Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about using the Tardis effect in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. All right. What is the Tardis effect? All right. So basically, the Tardis effect is from the Doctor Who show. Doctor Who has a police box. It's like a telephone box that you use to call the police. It's really interesting aspect of the Doctor Who show. And basically, when you go into the TARDIS, it's bigger on the inside. It's massively bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Okay. Now, when I'm talking about using the TARDIS effect today, I'm not actually talking about it being bigger on the inside. I'm talking about it being nicer on the inside. So I'm going to tell you a little story, and it really, the story, it's from this weekend for me, and it really just impacted me deeply. I was just stunned by something I witnessed, and I want to give this to you as a game master. So this is for dungeon masters to use in your campaign. You can use this specifically with an inn. You can use this with a shop. You can use this with any building location in your campaign that the player characters come to. All right, so let me explain it. All right, so this week, one of my new hobbies is speed cubing. I'm really into speed cubing. It's just 3x3 cubes, magic cubes. They've been around since the 80s. Many people know them as Rubik's Cubes. Speed cubers never use that term, but that's what they are. Yeah, so I went to a speed cubing competition with my two daughters. So I have a college-age daughter and I have a high school-age daughter. And all three of us are world-ranked speed cubers. I am very lowly ranked, world ranked speed cuber. In fact, I've done two competitions now. My first competition, I came in literally last place, right? This competition was progress because I did not come in last place. So it takes me like 2-3 minutes to solve a Rubik's Cube. Which is ridiculously slow for speed cubers, but it's faster than you, really. But so that, so I'm working on that, right? But on this one, right, one of the things that was really nice was that the reason I did not come in last this time is there was a 15-second solver, somebody who usually solves cubes in 15 seconds. But he could not control his finish. So when he would finish, he'd kind of slam his cube down, and basically, because his finish was so uncontrolled, he would DNF, which is called did not finish, right? So his ranking was lower than mine. Even though he could solve a cube way faster than me, his finish was so uncontrolled that my much slower, much more controlled finishes beat him, right? So I did not come last in this competition, which is progress. So I was very excited about that. My daughters did fantastic. They lowered their times from the last competition we were in. They're much faster than me. But we had a really amazing time. All right, so what does this have to do with Dungeons and Dragons and TARDIS? Let's get there right now. All right, so we drive. So this event was in Philadelphia. It was right in our backyard, which was really wonderful. We've driven like well over 100 miles for these competitions at different times, but this was just 20-25 miles away from where we live. So we drove into Philadelphia, right, and we get to the site of the event, and it's in inner city Philadelphia, but it's in an area that is not one of the nicer areas of Philadelphia. So we get there. And we get to this large brick building. It's about as large. It's half a block. It's a half a city block, right? This one-story, large brick, old building. So we're driving around this thing, and the GPS says this is your location. But we look at it, and every single window has a black wooden board over it, which has been painted. Right? There's kind of dust around the swirling dust around the corners of the building, right? And we're just looking at this thing and we're like, that looks like an abandoned building, right? That can't possibly be the venue, right? We can't see into it, right? But the more I thought about it, I was like, there's no broken windows. It's just all the windows are boarded up, right? And the rest of it is brick, right? And we don't really see. And now we're super early. We're there early because Garibays are always there early, and so we don't see a lot of people for the event, right? And we're like, what? Where is it? Are we in the wrong place, right? But I'm like, and so I circle around one time, and the GPS is like, this is it. And so I park, right? And we were able to park for free. That tells you, like, there wasn't a lot of commerce going on in this area. Like, if you can park for free in the city, you know it's not one of the better parts of the city. Right, so I parked for free, right on the street, and just walk over the building. And literally, as I'm walking over to the building, this very nice lady in a very nice vehicle drives up to me and she says, "Oh, I'm here for the cubing event," right? And and she's like with one of her children, right? And she's like, "Where do I park?" And I was like, "You park right over there on the street for free." And she's like, "Over there? Like in this area? Are you kidding?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like I was like, "I parked over there. My car's right over there. I parked for nothing right there on the street." And she's like, and I was like, "Oh, I understand your concern. Your car is much nicer than mine, but that's where you should park, right?" Like, and she was like concerned. She's like, "Oh my gosh, where are we?" And so like, more and more, like, it's looking like, oh my gosh, this venue is going to be a real problem. Like, are we going to be surrounded by corpses and bodies, like, inside of here? It's like, it was bad, right? Like, people were worried, right, on the way in. So now we start heading into the venue, and we're walking around this building to find an entrance, right? So I say to my daughters, I'm like, hey, start looking for cubers, right? We'll follow them in. That worked. Right? First of all, any event I go to that's like one of my events, I can always see my people, right? Like, because they don't look like muggles. There's wizards and there's muggles, and I can always tell the difference, right? So, like, we see two cubers, and I'm like, those two are cubers. Let's go, right? So we follow them in, and sure enough, we walk about a half a block, and then this guy comes around the corner, and he kind of waves us in, and like and then ducks back around the corner, and so we're like, whoa, this is weird, right? So then we get in, and the building, just continues to be brick and boarded up windows, covered by spray-painted black boards, right? So then we get in, and we're, like, worried, because we're worried about walking in this building, right? Because we're like, oh, boy, because it's like, this does not look good, right? Like, but I'm there, and I'm like, okay, this is where the event was. We traveled all the way out here. So we walk into the building, and everything transforms. We walk into the building. The first thing that told me it was okay was light. There was light everywhere. It was brilliantly lit. There were no dark corners inside the building. While all the windows were spray painted, had boards spray painted black on the outside. Inside, it was brilliantly lit. Now, what was under those brilliant lights? There were like probably $1 million+ in antique furniture, right? Like, chandeliers were hanging from all over the ceiling. Like, literally 24 chandeliers were in this movie. There were 24 chandeliers were in this room, in this massive building, in multiple rooms. It looked like a movie. It looked like we were in Paris, right? There's chandeliers everywhere, hanging from the ceiling, right? They were hung, right? In addition to that, there were grandfather clocks, right? All over, right? And there were furniture. There was tons and tons of furniture, gorgeous tables, right? And lots of chairs, right? And chairs from every different era, right? Like, there were Art Deco chairs, and there were Victorian chairs, and there were like fainting couches, and it was incredible. And it wasn't all piled up. It was actually put into the room on display, because this was an auction house. It was a display auction house. And so on this Saturday, this place was being used as a venue for a speed cubing competition. But on every other day, this is a brilliantly, beautifully lit auction house where wealthy people are strolled through while they sip lattes, and they say, I want that, that, and that, and that, and then check out for $20,000 at the end, right? Like, it's incredible, right? And I was like, what the heck? It blew my mind. And my girls were too. There were like wooden statues of eagles and that were abstract. Like, it was incredible, right? And all the seats were available to sit in. So for the venue, we just got to sit in these Art Deco. Like, there was a point where I was sitting in an Art Deco seat, my daughter was sitting on a fainting couch, and my other daughter was sitting in a Victorian chair. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was gorgeous and wonderful and delightful, and we were really, really excited to be there, right? It was the Tardis effect. It was much nicer than we had ever expected it to be. Really, really, just an amazing experience, right? So you can do this exact, and I was just flabbergasted and stunned by what we were witnessing. And you can do this in your Dungeons and Dragons game. You can bring forward this magic, for your game, and really, pull forward and surprise your player characters. You can bring them into an inn that looks like a dive, and on the first floor, it is a dive. But below, there's essentially like a speakeasy, and they sell the best ales, and the best mutton, and it's 4 or 5 times larger than the inn looks above, right? And also maybe there's a portal that lets people come and enjoy the inn without having to physically travel to it, And you could do this with any number of locations. You could do this with libraries. You could do this with shops where they shop for magical items. You could do this with taverns. You can do this with inns, right? You could even do this with essentially like almost like a midwife. A midwife might have a healing center, right? And again, portals would allow you to get traffic from people not just walking up, but you wouldn't even need the portal. You could see that people travel from miles, hundreds of miles around. And but this Tardis effect could be very, very powerful. And I literally lived through it, and I'm like, this was such a cool, exciting experience. I'm definitely going to recreate this experience for my players and give this to them in one of the games. I very much encourage you to do the same. Use the Tardis effect in your Dungeons & Dragons game campaign. I think that's a good way to Dungeon Master. What do you think? Have you done this in your game? Have you experienced this in your real life? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.